Aloha, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our final event of National Drive Electric Week, Will an EV Work for Me? This is co-hosted today by Drive Electric Hawaii and Hawaii EV Association. So before we get started, I'm just going to say this one more time. I know some of you have already heard this, but if you could please add the island that you're from into your Zoom name, that'll really help us make sure that we enter you into the raffle that we are having today, where we will be giving away one-day EV rentals, one per island. So make sure you put your island in your name. So my name is Kiani Jones, and I am the Clean Mobility Director at Blue Planet Foundation, a local nonprofit with a mission to advance Hawaii to a 100% clean energy future. All week long, we've been celebrating and educating about electric vehicles in the hopes of increasing the adoption of EVs in contribution to our clean energy and clean transportation goals. So I'll be kicking off the webinar today, going over the basics of electric vehicles and covering, why you should consider making the switch, what your options are, and some important considerations. I also have Stephen Ingledue here, who's a sales consultant and a certified EV expert through the Hawaii EV Expert Program, who will participate in a discussion about the sales process for new EVs and some important considerations. Then we have Nanette Vinton from the Tesla Club of Hawaii and Hawaii EV Association to talk about charging basics and everything that you need to know about EV charging. And then we have Tandy Tabata from Hawaiian Electric, who will be presenting on charging in Hawaii, what the current situation is, and what Hawaiian Electric is doing to improve it. So then we'll segue into our EV owner panel. We have 5 different EV owners here who come from a variety of different living and charging situations, who will talk about their experience, pass on some of their lessons learned, and then we'll open it up for Q&A from the audience. So please feel free to enter any questions that you have in the chat as we go along, and we will address them during our Q&A. And then finally, at the end, we'll have our EV rental raffle. So be sure to stay to the end to make sure that you are able to win that free one-day EV rental. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to start things off with just a fun video that Blue Planet Foundation has produced on EVs and some myth busting, just telling some truths about EVs. So let's get started. Oh, I just realized I need to share my audio, so give me 1 second.
Today we're going to be busting 3 myths in 3 minutes. And the first myth is that electric vehicles are small and not practical. Yeah, so there's many new EVs now on the roads and even more coming in the near future, from small SUVs to even full-size pickup trucks. We have the Ford F-150, which will be out in the next 12 months. My family and I have been driving a Nissan Leaf for more than 6 years. And since that time, our family has grown from 2 to 5. And so it meets our daily needs, going from just driving 2 adults to now 3 kids in car seats, all in the back. And then filling the trunk with everything you need for your daily needs, from strollers to groceries, to even, daily beach days, including towels and coolers and boogie boards for a great family fun day at the beach. It may look small and not seem practical, but it can meet your daily needs just as it does our family.
Hi, I'm Kiani Jones of Blue Planet Foundation, and the second myth we're going to bust today is that in order to own an EV, you need to have special equipment at home to charge it. When you get an electric vehicle, it's like having an appliance in your home. It comes with its own plug, and you can connect it to any standard electrical outlet if you have one nearby where you park. It's the slowest level of charging, but if you charge overnight, let's say about 10 hours, you'll still get 40 to 50 miles of range, and that's more than the average number of miles driven by people in Hawaii. You can install a higher powered charger if you want, but if you find that it's cost prohibitive for you, or if it's just not feasible, you have access to a large and growing public EV charging network across the state. We currently have nearly 700 publicly available charging ports across Hawaii.
Hello, I'm June Chi with Hawaiian Electric Company, and today I'm busting the third myth that electric vehicles are no better for the environment than gas-powered cars. It's true that many people charge their EVs off of electricity that's powered by our fossil fuel power plants. However, in the state of Hawaii, we average 36% renewable electricity in 2020, which means the EV you buy today is getting cleaner and cleaner as we get closer to our 100% renewable energy goal. EVs are highly efficient vehicles and produce no direct tailpipe emissions. So when charging on the grid here in Hawaii, an electric vehicle is still producing only 1/3 the amount of emissions as an average gas-powered car. And electric vehicles charged by rooftop solar, well, those are as clean as they come.
Aloha.
Okay, so that was just a fun video to kind of bust some myths that we often hear about EVs. But let's talk a little bit more about the why. Why should we go electric? So as you heard in the video, the first thing, which hopefully everybody's aware of, is that EVs are better for the environment. There's zero tailpipe emissions, which means cleaner air and better health benefits for everyone. And they're really highly efficient vehicles. So even if the electricity generation isn't from renewable sources, which, obviously in Hawaii, we do have a good amount of renewables, there's still fewer emissions associated with an EV for every mile driven. And, since Hawaii averaged 36% in renewable generation in 2020, it's about 1/3 for EVs compared to gas cars. In terms of the efficiency, EVs convert 77% of energy to power at the wheels compared to 12 to 30% from a gas car. And EVs can save you money. So they'll save you money in the long run. It's actually cheaper to fuel with electricity than it is with gas. And if you compare an EV to a gas car on a dollar per mile basis, you actually see that you will be saving money. And we'll get into that a little bit more later. EV owners save hundreds in annual fuel costs, depending, of course, on the vehicle that you're driving and your method of charging. And savings are maximized the most if you're able to charge at home using solar power. EVs also require less maintenance than the conventional vehicle because the electrical components require pretty much no regular maintenance. There are fewer fluids, there's no engine oil, things like that. Brake wear is significantly reduced due to regenerative braking. And Consumer Reports did a study and found that EV drivers spend half as much on maintenance as gas car owners. So there's also the federal tax credit, which is available. EVs have a little bit of a higher upfront cost currently. The federal tax credit helps. You can get up to $7,500. It depends on the size of the battery, but also battery costs are falling as technology improves and volumes increase. More availability equals more competition equals better prices. And every major automaker has plans to include EVs and plug-ins in their lineup, and some have committed to even going all electric in the near future. And then also you have the used EV market, which also provides affordable options as well. And EVs are fun to drive. They're quiet, they're smooth, they have a really quick pickup and acceleration thanks to instant torque. So, one thing I always tell people is if you haven't driven an EV, test drive one, check it out, because you really don't know until you drive it, and you can really feel how smooth of a drive it is. And then lastly, there are some other benefits. In Hawaii, electric vehicles are allowed to use the high occupancy vehicle lanes. This is obviously relevant for Oahu drivers, but EVs are allowed to use that even if you have a single driver. So, in terms of test drives, since we usually at Drive Electric Hawaii, we put on some test drives in person for people to check out the EVs, but because of the pandemic, we haven't been able to. But we have put together a digital test drive offering, which we have on our YouTube channel. So I'm going to just show a video right now that just kind of gives a commercial of the test drives we have available. But everybody should check out our YouTube channel, and I'll drop the link in the chat while this plays.
Hi, my name is Stephen Ingledue. Welcome to Volvo Honolulu, and I'm here today to introduce the first ever P8 Recharge XC40 all-wheel drive. This is our first all-electric car, sustainable, 202 miles of range. So for the island, it's perfect.
Hi, welcome. I'm Jason Hijirita. I'm here at Cervical Toyota Honolulu to introduce you to the RAV4 Prime. This is our second fastest vehicle in the Toyota lineup. And the best thing is it runs off of electricity and off of our hybrid technology.
Hello, my name is Keith from Cervical Chevrolet out here in Waipahu. I'm going to talk to you about the 2021 Chevrolet Bolt today. We have an overall length of 164 inches. It has a 66 kilowatt battery and a range of 238 miles on a full charge.
Aloha guys, my name is Jose from BMW Honolulu, and this is the X330E in black sapphire metallic. This car has an EPA of 17 miles full electric and 340 combined with the backup motor.
Okay. So again, the link is there in the chat, but our YouTube channel has a whole playlist of virtual test drives that you can check out. So, if you're interested, please do that. Okay, let's go back to how EVs can save you money. I found this really cool calculator online that helps you compare what you pay for, it helps compare what you get for what you pay for a gas car versus an EV. So the link is at the bottom, and I can drop this in the chat as well. It's chooseev.com savings calculator. I've put in here a typical price for a gallon of gas, $4. And then, I chose a gas vehicle. So the 2022 Toyota Camry, it gets a MPG of 26 miles per gallon. And then I'm comparing it to a 2022 Chevrolet Bolt, which has an efficiency, which I'll get into this later, but efficiency works very similar to miles per gallon for EVs. It gets about 3.6 miles per kilowatt hour. And what you pay for electricity is on average about 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So what this is doing here is it's saying that for the same price as a gallon of gas, so for $4, you get 21 miles more with an EV than you do for a gas. So you're able to drive further for your dollars. And over the course of a year, if we say we drove 10,000 miles for the year, that equates to a savings of almost $700. That can be more or less depending, again, on the vehicle that you choose. So let's go back to basics. I'm just going to quickly go over the different types of vehicles that are out there. The internal combustion engine is, what's on the road today. Most vehicles are still powered by gas, and so that's what your typical vehicle is. The second one is a hybrid electric vehicle, and this one is powered by gas, but it also has an electric motor. And only one of these engines are directly powering the vehicle at the time. This hybrid electric vehicle doesn't plug in. Instead, the vehicle uses regenerative braking, as well as the internal combustion engine to charge the battery. And it captures the energy that's normally lost during braking by using the electric motor as a generator, and again, storing that energy back into the battery. So the third one is the plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. This also has both gas and electric, but now we have a plug where we can actually recharge the batteries for this vehicle. And then we have the all-electric, the battery electric vehicle, and this is purely electric. There's only the electric motor, no gas engine. So these are the typical 4 vehicles you have on the market. These last 2 are the only ones that actually plug in, and those are what we are going to focus on today. So just to, kind of give you the basics of what's available today, for plug-in hybrids, the MSRP starts around $25,000 and it goes up from there. Obviously, we have some very expensive vehicles on the market, but to show you sort of like what the more affordable models are at, we're typically at around a base MSRP of $25,000. And of course, that doesn't include the federal tax incentives. Your electric range will range from about 14 miles up to 65 miles for just the electric portion. And then your overall range can get up to 630 miles. So the Toyota RAV4 Prime plug-in hybrid gets 600 miles range, and then the Hyundai Ioniq plug-in hybrid gets the 630 that's quoted here. For all electric, your MSRP starts in around the same range at about 27,000 and goes up, from there up to hundreds of thousands of dollars, because there's a lot of luxury vehicles on the market, but there are some affordable ones as well. Again, you take it into consideration the federal tax credit, and then you're down, to below 20,000 for all electric vehicles because the tax credit's 7,500. And then your electric range, it goes anywhere from about 100 miles to 400 miles. So a few years ago, we only had options that were in the hundreds of miles, and now we have 200, 300, 400 mile options. So that's really exciting to see. In terms of options, we also have, so many more sizes of vehicles than we used to. This was something that was important to me when I was shopping for my EV. I really wanted an SUV. I was starting a family. You don't go around changing your car all the time. So I knew that I wanted my next car to be an SUV. So, at the time, a couple of years ago, there weren't a lot of options, and now there are plenty. We have compact cars, we have the crossover SUVs, we have the full SUVs, and we even have trucks. So, you may be aware the Ford F-150 is coming. The Rivian truck also will be delivered next spring. And then we also have some other popular truck models that are being electrified in the near future. We have the Ram 1500 and the Chevy Silverado as well. So, continuing on with this, which EV is right for me? There's a lot of things you're going to need to consider. One of those, of course, being cost. What's in your budget, what's in your range. And so there's this interesting, and I will drop all these links after I'm done with the presentation. I'll drop them in the chat. There's this interesting website available that compares different EVs, on all the different important bases. So we can see here I've sorted it from the cheapest going more expensive. But what I want you to look at is not just the MSRP, but also what you're getting for your dollars. So what is the range that you're getting for the money you're spending? And that's going to equate on a cost per mile basis. So even though the Nissan Leaf is the cheapest, which this shows 30,000, but they actually dropped it. It's more closer to 27,000 now. Even though that's the most affordable right now in the market, you can see here that on a cost per mile basis, you look at the Hyundai Kona Electric, you're getting more for your money there. So yes, you're spending a little bit more, but you're getting a lot more range. Now, do you need that range? That's something you're going to have to think about with your own situation. But I just wanted to point out that it's not just about, the base price, but what you're getting for your money. Of course, that all depends on your budget. So if you look at this, also the Chevy Bolt is a pretty good cost per mile, and the Tesla Model 3 is in there as well. Now, another thing that contributes to cost that we talked about earlier is that efficiency factor. So what this is on the right, this red box, is how far can you drive per unit of fuel that you're paying for. So in electricity, that's kilowatt hours. So as you can see here, again, the Nissan Leaf, the efficiency is not as great as other models. If you look down at again, we have the Hyundai Ioniq, has a pretty good efficiency. The Tesla Model 3 has a pretty good efficiency. So this is going to contribute to what you are paying in fuel costs, and affects how much you're saving, as we went over earlier. So these are some important factors to look at when you're shopping for a vehicle. And this website does a great job of comparing all the different options on the market. You can look at, just the all-electric vehicles, or you can sort it to look at just the plug-in hybrids, depending on what you're interested in. Okay, so speaking of shopping, I mentioned this earlier, but Hawaii has the EV Expert Program. So what this is a training program for sales associates across Hawaii in all the dealerships that sell EVs. And what we found is that it's really important for sales associates to really understand the technology if they're going to sell it, if they're going to feel comfortable selling it. When you're shopping, if you go into a dealership, you want to encounter someone who really understands the technology and can really educate you and inform you on the things that are important. So we have a program here where you can find your, the EV expert closest to you or at the dealership you're interested in. You can select your island and select your make. I'm going to add this to the links at the end. I don't know why I didn't put that in here, but I'll add that in the links I send in the chat at the end here. So speaking of the Hawaii EV Expert Program, we have an EV expert here with us today, Stephen Ingledue. He's joining us to, answer some questions about, things to think about and things to consider when you enter the buying process. So Stephen, are you unmuted? Can we hear you?
Yes, I am. Good morning. Hi.
Great.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. So, the first thing is just to tell us about yourself and let us know, how long have you been doing this and how many EVs have you sold?
Well, I've been in the car business only about 6 years, but my experience over the years is product demonstration. And I've always felt like you need someone who understands the product, who can answer your questions, be understanding and be patient. And so when I got back into the car business, and I was at another car dealership, I was approached about getting EV certified. And I was the only person at that dealership who wanted to join. And I thought, this is a great thing, because it's not about just selling a car today, it's about the future. And so when I came over to Volvo, I was reached, Blue Planet had me do a virtual test drive, which I thought was fantastic. And this was right when the cars were coming in, our first all-electric EV, called the XC40 Recharge. And Volvo is committed to every year coming out with a new all-electric model. And they were the first to make a statement of going 50% electric by year 2025 and 100% electrified by 2030. And the Swedish people, they're just very much into, going green and low emissions or, no CO2 emissions. So I was excited that they were going this route. We already had plug-in hybrid models, which is a great step for people to go into if they don't have solar, etc. And then there's no range anxiety. So I've been in the industry maybe only 6 years in the car industry. But since coming here to Volvo, I've sold already 13 of these electric vehicles. And the first people pre-ordered them, and then we were allocated about 8 vehicles. They went very quickly. And just last month, Volvo decided to do all online ordering, the same model you could say as Tesla. So when you go online, there's 2 trim levels. The price is right there. There's no extras. I mean, you can add on a few accessories. It shows you what your lease option is. It shows you what your purchase option is, or cash. It also states on there that it says that the car will be delivered to the dealer in 10 days. That's if you're on the mainland. For Hawaii, my first client ordered it on the 7th of September. It arrived the 28th. So that was very quick. They decided to pre-build the cars and have them ready at ports throughout the United States, so quick delivery. Just yesterday, we ordered one of these cars online, and it shows that the second trim level, if you want it delivered in 20 days, is already sold out. The first trim level, the Plus, Recharge Plus, in our region, there's only about 6 or 7 cars. So I'm just letting people know they're going very quickly. If you want to actually build, you can go where it says build a car. it says expect to wait up to 5 months. So I just want people to understand this is a trend that is just growing quickly. It's exciting. They're also partnering with Electrify America, and Electrify America has said they will build in 2022 charging stations throughout Hawaii. I read about that. If you buy a 2022 recharge, they will give you, I believe, a year of unlimited charging at their charging stations. You have up to 3 years to use that credit, which is fantastic. And another, if you want to ask me questions, I'll just keep talking. I'm excited
No,
about
I was just
this.
gonna, yeah, I mean, I don't want to cut you off, so go ahead. What were you gonna say?
Well, the one thing about Volvo is safety. And my mother is on her second Volvo because it saved her life. She's now 87 years old. Her car is a 2004. And if you look at quality, build quality, service, talking about, and that's a gas model car. I explain to my people all the time, buy from a company that's been around since 1927. Their goal from day one is safety. And it's not just if you get into an accident, it's also safety in the air conditioning units, which is the best in the world. That helps with breathing. And I think we all know about what's going on with respiratory, et cetera. I just went to the Big Island yesterday. The volcano is erupting and there's going to be more fog. This AC system has an ionization system. So talk about safety when you're breathing clean air. But the whole car, yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. I just want to ask a couple of questions, just more generally for people who, are shopping. Can you, we talked about the federal tax credit and, that's a great incentive. Can you talk about the difference between how it'll apply for if you're buying a vehicle versus if you're leasing an EV?
Sure. When you purchase a vehicle and you're doing a finance, if you have to go to your tax accountant. If you owe taxes, that $7,500 will be credited to the amount of tax that you owe. It's a credit, not a rebate. So that's one thing. You need to owe money to the IRS to get this $7,500 tax credit. Now, normally with a lease in the past, I had read that $7,500 goes to the leasing company. Well, we just had that woman on the Big Island lease one of our cars. Volvo actually they deducted the $7,500 off the MSRP. I was like, wow. So that brings down the car. If you see online right now, the MSRP is $57,895. So with that tax credit, it brings it down to $50,395 plus fees. Amazing. Because
so it sounds like it might vary from dealership to dealership, and that's great. That was my experience as well. I have a Volvo myself, and Volvo did credit the credit to the sales price, so that was great. I wanted to ask you as well. How important do you feel that it is for a sales associate to be knowledgeable about electric vehicles that they're selling?
It's very, very important. I mean, the customer, they can do a lot of research themselves, which is online, which is great. But again, when you come to purchase, this is a big purchase. You want to make sure, the questions you have are answered. They're knowledgeable about the warranty. Like the battery nationally, it's an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on the battery. Volvo stated on average, the batteries last 10 to 12 years. I also feel that if you're going to purchase the car, you're going to see a lot more savings. And if you're going to keep the car a long time, you're going to see a lot of savings. If you're going to lease the car, you have to decide if that extra payment, because the car is more expensive than a plug-in hybrid or a gas car, are you going to have that savings? I think a lot of people, sometimes it's not about the savings, it's about doing good for the planet, going green and climate change. So those are some things to consider. And again, the quality of the car, the build, the manufacturer of the car. But I also find it's about the aesthetics, the beauty of the car. Most people, it's like putting on a pair of jeans or a nice suit. You want to make sure it drives well, it fits you well, and that you love the design as well. So those are some things that I think are important.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for bringing up the warranty thing as well. I think that's important for people to consider. Not every dealership has the same warranty. I believe it's by law, manufacturers have to provide at least 8 years and 100,000 miles. Some do more, and some, have different provisions in that warranty. So definitely something for people to think about as well. Thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us and for talking a little bit about yourself and Volvo and buying an EV. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, EVs, they have a pretty high upfront cost right now. They're coming down in price, but we also have the used EV market available. And so I just wanted to show a quick video on one resident who purchased a used EV and what her experience was.
My name is Nicole Chatterson. I'm a resident of Manoa, a valley on the island of Oahu. We purchased our secondhand vehicle because of budget reasons and also because we both understand the value of buying secondhand. It reduces your impact on extracting raw minerals and resources to make something new. So we've had our 2012 Leaf for about 2.5 years, and she's fantastic. I work in Haleiwa Town on the North Shore, so I do a fair amount of commuting, and I can get up to the North Shore on a charge, and I still have miles left over to get me to a public charging station where I can fill my battery back up for the way home. I empathize with the feeling of EVs not being financially available, and we were thrilled to find that there are lots and lots of EVs on the secondhand market. So just like shopping for any secondhand vehicle, you're going to want to make sure the tires are good, the brakes are good. Another thing you want to be looking for with secondhand EVs is the life of the battery. So there's questions you can ask the previous owner. Have they ever had the battery replaced? How many bars are left in the battery charge is another great question. And that will give you a sense of how much mileage you'll get out of one charge for your EV. It feels really good to be contributing to Hawaii's clean energy future. Once you understand the impacts of fossil fuel and what that's doing to our climate and our planet, it's empowering to find a way to take action towards lessening your own impact. And EVs are a great way to do that, in my opinion, especially if you're buying secondhand, because you're reusing all those materials that went into making the EV, and that's a beautiful thing. So I feel like I'm making a positive impact because I'm working towards a solution to that problem.
So, you can find used EVs on a number of websites. Craigslist is a great option. I know the Hawaii EV Association has a area on their website. If you just click on a link, it'll take you straight to a pre-filled out search that shows you what's available on Craigslist for a number of the models that they've inputted already in the search. And I went and looked at it yesterday. There were lots of Nissan Leafs available for sale. I also saw a Kia Soul and some Teslas. So, if you're interested in a more affordable EV, definitely check out the used secondhand market and see what's out there. Okay, so just to close out this segment on, choosing the EV that's right for you, there's two more key factors that you're going to want to think about. And this probably sounds obvious. The first one is, how far do you normally drive? That's going to be key, right? I mean, the average miles driven daily in Hawaii are around 30 miles. And, if you think about that, that's something, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but an overnight charge can replenish your battery for 30 miles. But if you're driving across the island, or if you have a long commute, these are all things that are going to factor into whether you need an EV with a longer range. And then in combination with that, what are your charging options? Whether you're able to charge at home, whether you have access to public chargers near where you live and where you work, or just along your route. these are things that you need to consider. And so to help us learn more about charging, we have Nanette Vinton, who will now go over the basics of EV charging with us.
Thanks so much, Kiani. That was a really great overview of the EV market, and I'm really excited to see all those new models coming out in the EV market growing. I'm Nanette Vinton, and I am on the board with the Hawaii EV Association, as well as the president of the Tesla Hawaii Club. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of chargers and charging. Next. So once you get your EV, you're probably going to have a lot of questions about charging. How do I charge? Where do I charge? How much will it cost? And how often will I need to charge? Next. So first we'll talk about the types of chargers out there. First you have the level 1 charger. And this is actually just your standard wall outlet. We call this trickle charging because it takes the longest to charge. You can probably get about 40 miles overnight. And this is something that Kiani had already talked about. Next, we have level 2 charging, which uses a 240 volt outlet. And that's similar to what you plug your dryer in. It's a faster charge, so you can get about 25 miles per hour of charging. So that means you can probably get a full charge between 4 and 8 hours. And finally, we have level 3 charging. Those are the DC fast chargers. And you can actually get a full charge from anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes. Next. So where do you charge? Most EV owners charge at home. It's the most convenient. And you can plug in when you get home, and you can even schedule your charging session. There are programmable chargers out there, and there are also EVs that you can schedule your charging, so you can take advantage of the time of use rates that Hawaiian Electric has, and Tandy will talk about those in her presentation next. Next. And where do you get an EV charger? So you can buy an EV charger from charger manufacturers, Juicebox, Clipper Creek, ChargePoint, and Siemens are a few of the EV charger manufacturers out there. And also you can get them from retailers such as Lowe's, Home Depot, Costco, and even Amazon. EV dealers will likely give you a recommendation on which charger to buy. And if you own a Tesla, Tesla actually has wall chargers for sale on their website or through their service center. They cost around $500 to $1,000 or more, with installation. And there is a federal tax credit, 30% on the purchase and installation of a home EV charger, and that actually expires at the end of the year. Next. In installing a home charger, you're going to need a dedicated 220 volt circuit, where there are portable chargers out there where you can actually just plug into your dryer outlet. Most licensed electricians can install both the circuit and the charging station, and the cost is going to depend on how far that circuit is from your main electrical box. But most EVs have a charging cord, a level 2 charging cord that's 15 to 25 feet. So if it's cheaper to install their circuit on one side of your garage and you park on the other side of the garage, you shouldn't have to worry because you can just drag that cord over to your car. Next. Your other option is public charging. There's a state law that all public places with more than 100 parking stalls has to have at least one EV. So you'll see public chargers at shopping centers, office buildings, hospitals, entertainment venues, like the Blaisdell, Aloha Stadium, and even the airport have them. Level 2 is the most common chargers that you'll see out there. So you'll get about 25 miles of range, charging range per hour. And then we have level 3 chargers, a DC fast chargers. So Hawaiian Electric has a network of chargers across the state. If Teslas use these chargers, they're going to need a special adapter, a CHAdeMO adapter that they can buy from Tesla. Another form of level 3 charging is a Tesla superchargers. And I'm excited to say that there is actually one in permitting right now. It's going to be the first public one in the state, and that's at Pro Ridge Center in IAS. So hopefully we'll be seeing that opening soon. And finally, we have Tesla destination chargers for Teslas. There aren't that many of those right now. They're mostly in hotels, but there are chargers at International Marketplace and at the Tesla Service Center that are available for public use. Next. So who uses public chargers? There are a lot of renters out there and people who live in condo buildings that don't have access to home charging, so they rely on public charging. If you have a older EV or short range EV, just like we saw in the used EV video there, you may need to charge or I guess top off, depending how far you drive away from home, and you can use public charging for that. Also, if you forget to plug in at home, which is what I have done on occasion, you can also use public charging for that. Cost is anywhere from free to, sorry about that, to $2 to $3 per hour. And you also have to factor in any parking lot charge. Next. So how do you find where these chargers are? You can actually do a Google Map search for EV chargers. You can find them that way, or there are a few apps that you can use. PlugShare is the most important. That's what I have shown here. On the left side, you'll see the map showing all the EV chargers, and you can search with the map or plug in an address or business name to find the chargers near that location. And then you can click on the chargers and then see the details of the chargers, and you'll see that on the right hand of the screen, how much it costs, what network it uses, and how many chargers are available. And also it'll show if any of the chargers are out of order. OpConnect and ChargePoint also have their own apps to show where their chargers are on their network. Next. And finally, how often should you charge? Well, it depends on a lot of factors. Depends on what type of charger you're using. If it's a level 1, a level 2, or level 3, that's going to reflect the charging rate that you have. And it depends on the range of your car. Obviously, if you have a shorter range on your car, say 100 miles, you may need to charge more versus, there's cars with over 400 miles, so you won't have to charge as frequently. Length of the commute, depending on how far you drive from home. I live in Mililani and I drive all the way to downtown. So that's about 40 miles. I have a 220-mile range on my car, so I could probably go without charging for a few days, but I usually just plug in when I get home. It's kind of habit. As far as temperature goes, this mostly affects driving in cold weather, which we don't have much of here. It will decrease your range because it takes more energy for the battery and the car to heat up. And finally, we have driving style. Just like with a gas car, if you're a little bit more aggressive with that gas pedal, accelerator, go a little bit faster, then that's going to eat up more energy. And also, if you use your AC all the time, that's going to use up more energy as well. Next. And that is my overview of EV chargers and charging. So I'm going to hand it over now to Tandy Tabata of Hawaiian Electric, and she's going to talk about EV charging in Hawaii. Tandy?
Before Tandy starts, I just want to make a quick announcement. I announced this in the beginning, but in case anybody missed it, we are raffling off EV rentals, one-day EV rentals, thanks to Hawaii EV Association. So I just want to make sure that if you want to enter into this raffle, we are pulling from the participant list. So make sure your name is there and your island. We're going to do a raffle per island, so make sure your island is in your name so that we can enter you. And yeah, we'll draw that at the end. So that's my announcement, and I'll hand it over to Tandy. Tandy?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. As I was mentioning, my name is Tandy. I'm a senior program manager at Hawaiian Electric. I did want to talk about kind of go into a deep dive on electric charging options in Hawaii. I'll go into the first slide. But first, kind of just wanted to bring us back in history that, EVs are actually not a new thing. The first electric vehicle in Hawaii was here over 100 years ago, and that picture is of Prince Kuhio, I think, driving his electric car back then. And, it didn't quite catch on at that time. And we saw more EVs coming back in the 90s. And then this latest surge where, GM and a number of other vehicle manufacturers have made strong commitments to provide electric vehicles into their fleets going forward. So there's a lot of momentum now. And I think, for various reasons, the technology is now sort of catching up. Prices are coming down, and that's sort of the upward trend that we're seeing. You can go to the next slide. And I know a lot of you have heard that EVs are catching on. There's a lot of reasons why People are choosing electric. One, of course, is for the environment, but of course, there's also cost benefits, less maintenance, less fuel costs. And we expect that that trend will keep growing into the future, where practically every other vehicle that you see in the parking lot could be electric going forward. So that's a lot of EVs coming. I think some of you who have not yet purchased an EV may have some questions that come up in your mind, and you're wondering whether or not you should purchase an electric vehicle. I'll move to the next slide. Where will you charge? How will you charge? And how much will it cost? I know Nanette covered some of that, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. We can go to the next slide. As others have mentioned, you can definitely charge at home. Typically, people will plug it in like any other new appliance in your house. You get a new toaster oven or anything else. You have an existing outlet in your home, and you can certainly charge your EV that way. And that is metered under, your existing electric service. There's really no change. Except that, you'll have that plugged in, in your garage. There is another option, is to do a separate meter for your EV. And this is where that time of use rate comes into play. So, on the left where you have one meter, you could be just on a residential rate. The price is the same regardless of when you charge. Or you could put your whole house on a time of use rate, which means that there's lower prices at certain times of the day. For some people, it may not be beneficial for them because they're not going to change their lifestyle to necessarily be able to take advantage of lower prices during the day, which would mean, you have to shift a lot of your, your cooking and your home activities to the daytime, and that may not work out for folks. But there may be some who feel like they can shift their EV charging to the day. For example, maybe they don't use their EV to commute, and their vehicle is home during the day most of the time. Maybe they take the bus, they carpool, they walk, whatever it may be, or they work from home, and they have a lot of time to charge at home during the day. And if that is the case, there is an option to put in a second meter under the time of use rate. There is cost, of course, associated with that. You would need to work with a licensed electrician to install and bring in new service separately for that meter. But for some folks, that works really well, and they appreciate the cost savings that they can get from that. Let me show you what those prices kind of look like. In that next slide. Thanks, Kiani. So as you can see, this is an example of the time of use rates as of last month in September. The lowest price is in that yellow bar during the day. And you can compare that with that dark line going across, where it's about 30 cents per kilowatt. That's what you would typically pay on a residential rate. So it goes down to 14 cents during the day, and that's between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. There is a disincentive, to charge at other times of the day. So again, it doesn't work for everyone, but for some folks, they can really take advantage of that daytime period and get a significant cost savings that way. If you do have solar on your rooftop, this time of use rate may not be a fit for you, of course, because you are generating your own electricity during the day, and you're really not leveraging those low prices by buying electricity from us. You're really using your own electricity. So that's just a consideration. If you have PV or you're considering PV, time of use rate may not quite be the right fit for you. I could do just a simple, quick comparison. I know others have done some cost comparisons, but I know I was looking at gas prices very recently and comparing it to the electric prices. And when you compare the two, it's probably over 35% cost savings. So some people do call us and they say, hey, my electricity bill went up, and I'm wondering what happened. And so a lot of times they did buy an EV, they did plug that in. They do see an increase in their electricity bill, but when you compare it with their combined gas bill plus their electricity bill prior to having an EV, it is a cost savings when they shift to electric. You can move to the next slide. So other folks, if you don't have the option to charge at home, some people they rent their home, so they're not able to change any of the infrastructure in their home. They can't, put in a new outlet, or they live in an apartment or condo, and right now they don't have a charging option there. Some people, have a second car, or they strictly use street parking where they're not able to access an outlet. And then, of course, there's those that are out and about all day, and if they're an Uber driver or a rideshare, or they just one of those road warriors and they need a charge on the go. There are other options. We can move to the next slide. For public charging, this is a screenshot from PlugShare, and there are hundreds of charging options out there across the state. So there's a good amount of different options. If you go on there, I think the green spots indicate level 2 charging. The orangey ones typically are fast charging options. Can go to the next slide. This is strictly the Hawaiian Electric fast charging network. So we do have about 25 stations that are currently installed. We are approved for a certain number of charging stations, and we will likely meet that cap. I think we have 4 more stations that we're planning to put in the coming months. And then from there, we'll be looking to request to make that program permanent and be able to expand and put in more charging stations throughout our service territory. And, with those charging stations, I think Nanette mentioned you can get a pretty good amount of range in a short amount of time. We estimate about 40 miles in 15 minutes of charging. Just so you know, like after you hit about 80% of charge, it does slow down. And so if you're looking to really maximize your time, do that quick charge up to 80%, and you don't necessarily need to wait the full amount of time to get to 100% charge. The stations here, they take different options for payment. There's credit card reader at many of the stations. You can also use an app. They've mentioned like OpConnect and Greenlots are network service providers. They provide service to our stations. They have apps where you can set up an account directly with them, and you can make payments strictly by the app. You can even start your charge through the app. And a third way is Greenlots and OpConnect do offer cards. So some of them are like either a magnetic strip or an RFID card, and you can swipe a card to pay. So there's different options. If you are having, any trouble with your charge, or you're not really sure, if you're doing things correctly, there's always a number on the front of the charging station, and you can call the support line for Greenlots or OpConnect, whoever is the service provider, directly, and they can help you troubleshoot on the spot. And I find that that's always the most helpful. I mean, it's kind of like when you have a problem with your computer, it's helpful when you're there and you can show them the problem or talk through the problem. And a lot of times they can remote start your session if things are not working. So it's great to call when you're there if you are having any trouble. Can move to the next. These are an example of the rates. This is Oahu rates. They're slightly different for each island, but they also follow that same time of use rate structure where it is a lower cost in the middle of the day, between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So if you're looking for the most bang for your buck, that 9 to 5 is the time where you'll find the lowest rates. We can move to the next one. This is our latest effort to get community feedback on where they would like to see charging going forward. And we had over 1,500 entries. So a lot of people had a lot of places where they would like to see new charging stations in the future. We did do a critical backbone study in 2019, and it indicated that based on how many EVs we project into the future, we'll need 7 times more the number of public charging stations than we have right now. So there's lots of room for growth. We're obviously not the only ones putting charging stations in the ground. There are a number of other service providers out there doing the same. Okay, next. Okay, and then we're looking at, what can enable charging. This is going a little bit more into the future. We'll move to the next slide. We are currently waiting for commission feedback and approval for something that would allow us to install charging infrastructure up to the point of connection with the charging station. And that would be for retail spaces, apartments, MUDs, those types of workplaces, for example. And so that saves the customer a lot of cost and, of course, complexity if they're looking at putting charging stations in. All the parts in purple are the parts that Hawaiian Electric would design, install, own, and maintain. So that's bringing in power, the transformer, the meter, past the meter, which is not typical previously or currently, and up to an electrical panel and up to a charging station. And really the customer or that business, for example, or your condo would worry more about just the charging station and getting that charging station in place. So we're hoping to be able to do that with PUC approval in the future. We do have approval already for a similar program for electric bus fleets, and we are looking to launch that in 2022. And I think the last slide, I just wanted to mention, and I think others have mentioned, oh, sorry, one up, Kiani, that there are rebates available for charging stations, specifically ones that are networked and shared. So if you do have a business and you want to put in a charging station that can be shared with customers, or you have an apartment, there are incentives to offset those costs. And you can go to Hawaii Energy's website to get more information on that. And that's that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tandy. That was a really informative presentation. We're going to transition now to our EV owner panel. So as I mentioned earlier, we have some great, enthusiastic EV owners who have volunteered to come in and talk about their experience. So we have Noelle Morin, who's going to introduce each of them.
Thank you, Kiani, and also Tandy. Great information that you just shared there. Aloha, everyone. Noelle Morin here. I'm with Hawaii EV. I also lead Big Island EV Association. We now have the opportunity to hear from EV owners across the state. They'll each take a few minutes to share their story with you. After their talks, we'll have time for questions. So if you have any questions during this segment, please enter them in the chat. I'd like to do a quick intro of all our panelists. So first off is Jean Campbell. Jean, by the way, is my mother-in-law. Hi, Mom. She lives here in Hilo on the Big Island, and she relies on level 1 charging at home. Next is Rita Ryan. Rita is a longtime EV advocate and early adopter on Maui. She uses a level 2 charger at home. Goran Rad is a Kauai EV owner, and he actually relies on solar power charging. It'll be interesting to hear his story as well. We also have Marcus Rymel, who lives on Oahu, and he'll be sharing his experience with pre-owned EV, their pre-owned EV purchase. And then lastly, David Aquino, also from Oahu, who relies exclusively on public charging. So a welcome to our panelists. Let me start by asking each of you to share your story. What kind of EV do you drive, and what is your charging experience like? Kindly take about 3 minutes to share so that we can hear from everyone. And with that, I'll start off with Jean.
Good morning. My name is Jean Campbell, and I have a level 1 charger, a Leaf. And I'm very, very happy with it, very comfortable with it. And so I would encourage anyone who wants simplicity in their life to just get an electric car, because on a level 1, it's no different than plugging up your vacuum cleaner. And you just do it as a continual thing, and your life is so much less complicated, especially with all the traffic that different people have. You don't have to go anywhere to get gas, or you don't have to have your car serviced all the time. You're doing the service, and it's so simple. And I really enjoy the quiet, the clean, it's really made my life so much more peaceful and enjoyable. And when you drive, it's comfortable, and you don't have to think about charging. You just go home and charge. So that is why I recommend electric. And I would never have anything but that. Any
Thanks.
questions?
Thanks, Mom. Yeah, well, I'm sure there'll be some questions later after we go through everyone.
Okay.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Next up, Rita, let's hear about your story.
Aloha. Hi. Yeah, I'm on Maui. Been driving EVs here since I think 2014, and with a level 2 charger at home, which I could probably be like Jean and be able to charge overnight, but now we have 3 EVs. So there's a little bit of competition for that charger. I've got a tenant on site who has an EV, and I really encourage all my tenants. I only have 2, but my tenants to drive EVs because I don't like the sound of combustible engine cars, nor the smell, nor anything about them. So I've just been an advocate of EVs. We've got 2 Nissan Leafs and a Kia Soul. And so, you can go from 0 to full in about 4 hours, but we never go down to 0 because our range is enough that we never drive that much. So it's pretty easy. We're all on one charging station and we manage it, and it works out great. I try to charge during the day rather than at night. I think my tenant tends to charge more at night. She's out and about during the day. It all works out beautifully. And I just, I originally got the EVs because, or the original EV because I was concerned about the climate. That was really my only, my impetus, to switch from, I wanted to get off fossil fuel entirely, but I really love the no stinky gas stations, no exhaust, no, I don't know, those stains you get on the driveway, it's just so much cleaner and quieter. And I feel like, I'm living in 2021, not back in the fossil fuel era. And so I really love it. And I highly recommend it. But I also enjoy the cost savings. It's amazing. My car has almost never gone in for maintenance other than, some new tires. I mean, put a little bit of, windshield wiper fluid in and you're good. I mean, just the 0 maintenance. And I like to have a little bit, I used to drive a Mustang 5.0 GT, and I really like a muscle car. This thing is amazing. I mean, it's a little Nissan Leaf, and you go from 0 to 60. You can blow away these like fancy Italian sports cars at the stoplight if you're so inclined. So that's kind of fun. They're fun, So it's the best decision we've ever made.
Thanks, Rita. So if I understand correctly, you have a level 2 charger.
I do.
And you're sharing that with across 3 different vehicles that you're placed.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
No problem. We've got a kind of long card, and we don't have to rearrange cars or anything like that. It all works.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Goran, tell us about your experience. I'm really curious about solar charging. How have you been able to make that happen?
All right. Yeah. Hi, I'm Goran here on Kauai. And, I've had experience charging with solar energy since 2013. So plenty of experience with solar. I've been taking, the whole charging thing with electric vehicles to a really granular level. And when I first installed my PV system back in 2007, there was no thought in my mind that I'd be charging an electric car. However, we were able to obtain that net metering program from Kauai Electric. So, just kind of noticing how a level 2 charge, on cloudy days, doesn't work quite well with a 3 kilowatt system, right? 3 kW, 3000 watts. Level 2 requires 6,000-ish watts on average, depending on the car. So we had a learning experience. We have this PV system, not quite adequate. Yeah, we were saving some money, but okay, well, it's cool to charge with solar, but it's not quite working out quite well. Well, back in February, I moved into a new home, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do it right this time. So I installed a 11 kW system, 11,000 watts. That's 30 panels and 2 Tesla batteries. So what we did is we kind of made sure that we were a little bit above the level 2 charge, so that we can, reasonably, charge off grid even on some cloudy days. And the Tesla batteries help out a lot. One thing, sorry, I left out, my previous 3 kW PV system had no battery. So that was kind of the reason why we kind of still had a bill. So, so in the last 2 months, which is when my new PV system got commissioned, man, I was really curious, what's my new bill going to look like? Well, my wife and I each drive a Kia Niro EV, which is 63 kilowatt hours of battery storage, right? So we have 2 electric cars at our home with this 11,000 watt system. So, what's our bill going to be? So I just got my bill the other day, and it's I have $132 credit on my bill, even after charging 2 cars throughout the month. We drive around 50 miles a day each with our cars, and lo and behold, like, you can actually drive off grid. It's kind of cool. So anyway, that was the biggest sort of, I don't know, excitement, I guess, with driving an electric car, having no electric bill, and then it's solar powered. How do you like that? So anyway, that was round 2 with solar. It worked out pretty good. Tandy showed a graph with the yellow part in the middle. That's kind of the time that we charge. So charging at night, because of the new Schedule Q, requires us to use grid power. But if we're charging during that yellow moment, or 9 to 5-ish, we're going to charge basically off grid. We have enough PV power during the day, and then we have some battery power to kind of keep it off the grid, right? And we can still pretty much charge off grid almost every day, even some cloudier days too. One thing is that we kind of need to charge 1 car at a time. So it would be like we would charge every other day with each car, so that's kind of the way it really kind of works.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Clearly, there are a lot of moving parts there, and I'm pretty sure that some of our audience may have some questions for you. But thanks again. That's an incredible story.
For sure.
So next up, we have Marcus. The floor is yours.
Hi there, my name is Marcus. I'm a current Kia Soul. I bought it used from a Servco dealership here on Oahu. It was 3 years old when I bought it, so it's a 2017 model. We bought it in 2020. We did have experience driving other electric vehicles before that, so we did know what to look for. Things to check were checking your battery range on the vehicle when you buy it used. The dealership salesperson actually didn't know much about it, so I think we were a little bit more educated than he was. So using our knowledge on EVs, knowing what type of plugs it had, knowing that it had a CHAdeMO and a J1772, we knew we could do fast charging. We knew we could do charging at home. The battery, when we saw it fully charged, the range on the dashboard showed that it still had over 111 miles, and the vehicle, I think, originally had about 105 to 120 miles range. So we're still getting almost 100% of that battery, maybe 5-10% less, but still plenty of range. And it is a second vehicle for us. It's for the family to share, kind of a beach car. We have some teenagers that are growing up, so it'll be a car that they're driving once in a while. So we're trying to teach the teenagers how to charge and how to use it and how to manage using an EV. Besides that, it still has the warranty. Kia has a 5-year warranty on the basic vehicle, and then it has a 10-year, 100,000 mile warranty on the battery. So feel really confident. Right now, we do use a level 1 charger at home. I just plug into the wall. Usually at night, I'm out at work during the day, so if I don't charge every night, we'll find mostly Hiko chargers since it's Chatamo. The Hiko chargers are really effective. If you can go during the day before 5 p.m., you get that discount. But those can charge you. I get only about 15, 20 minutes, and I get 30%. So they're great. I really appreciate them. And the bill for those is usually $5 to $10 for that 30% that you charge. So very effective, very affordable. The electric vehicle that we bought, I think the full retail price when it was brand new was about $36,000, and we got it for less than half that when we bought it in 3 years old. So it's been a great experience, and just love driving EVs.
Marcus, thanks very much for that. I really appreciate as well the cost, the cost comment there, because as we've heard here in this webinar so far, pre-owned EVs, used EVs represent, many of them represent terrific value, right? The depreciation hit has already been taken by somebody, and many of these still have warranties and a lot of miles to go. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks.
So our last owner here is David. Thank you very much for joining us. Really interested in hearing your story, given the fact that you don't have access to home charging, so you're relying on public charging. Tell us about it.
It's Noel. My name's David. I was born and raised here on the island of Oahu. Growing up, I was always a truck guy. My first car I owned was a Toyota 4Runner, and then a Nissan Frontier hardbody, and then recently a 2013 Toyota Tacoma. I think in general, there's just a really big truck culture here in the islands. And I definitely, fall into that category. But, being sort of a surfer all my life, us surfers, we get to see the impacts of climate change sort of firsthand on our oceans and reefs. So that's what sort of motivated me to decide to ditch gas and go electric. So at the end of 2020, I leased a 2020 Kianiwai EV. It's a crossover SUV. It gets about 240 miles per charge. But most importantly, it fits all of my surfboards. I can put 3 shortboards inside with the back seats folded down. I can put 2 full-size stand-up paddleboards up top on the roof racks. So it holds on my surfboards and actually can fit more than my trucks did before, in a safer way, because you can actually leave the boards in the car and not have to worry about someone just grabbing it out of the back of your truck. So it definitely fits my needs for my lifestyle. Charging, I live in a condo in Kaka'ako. There's a decent number of public charging stations in the area, including the building where I rent from. So there's public charging in Salt in Kaka'ako, Ala Moana Shopping Center, Ward Center, Whole Foods. Hawaiian Electric has their fast chargers on Ward. So there's a number of places where you can charge up while you're doing either your grocery shopping or going to Dave & Buster's or catching a movie. In general, some chargers are paid, some are free. In my building, there's a charging rate of 35 cents a kilowatt hour. But even paying for charging from the grid, I was able to reduce my fuel costs from about $160 a month putting gas in my trucks versus $40, which is what I pay to fill my electric vehicle every month. I charge about once a week. That's enough for my driving needs. Luckily, I do most of everything in town. And I noticed that in the middle of the day is probably the easiest time to find charging because there's more people at work. Also in the middle of the day, we're using more of the renewables that we're producing on our grid. So there's other environmental reasons for charging in the middle of the day. Paid chargers tend to be more available for obvious reasons. But for situations like mine where paying for electricity is not the issue, it makes public charging, I think, a lot easier. And then my overall thoughts is that there's a decent number of public charging stations, but we absolutely need more. I think that'll really make going electric much easier of a decision for many locals like me. And yeah, I treat my EV like a cell phone, so just topping it off whenever I can, not waiting till the battery's almost fully drained. So even if you're putting in, only 5 or 10 miles here and there, I think treating an electric vehicle like a cell phone is the best way to do it if you're going to be doing public charging.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It's inspiring, and hopefully it will inspire others here who live in similar situations, right? Not having access to home charging. So it's doable. It's really important to understand this, the public charging situation, the amount of range that you need, and importantly, what you need the vehicle for. Like clearly, you were able to replace a truck with a small SUV type, which is great. I'd like to thank all of you for sharing your insights and experience with us. Importantly, for helping us kick gas. At this point, we're going to transition over to some Q&A, some questions that have been raised by folks. And for that, I will turn it over to Kiani.
Okay, great. Thanks, Noel. If you could start spotlighting some of the presenters so we can bring in all of our presenters and panelists for the Q&A portion. So I've been looking at the chat log. A lot of these questions have already been answered, so I might just kind of bring it up in case people aren't reading the chat, just let everybody know some of the good information that's coming in. One of the things that came in recently was a question about, how to know how much solar to put, in your home to cover your EV charging. And there's a good answer here, that your solar installer will do all of the work for you to calculate not just what you need for your EV charging, but what you could use for the rest of your home as well. Does anyone have anything to add to this? Maybe Goran, since that's your area of expertise.
Yeah, totally. So, having actual direct experience with that, a level 2 charge, which is kind of the most desirable, the most convenient charge for, getting your car ready for the next day. I found that it's really best to keep or to design a PV system over 8,000 or 9,000 watts. Mine currently is 11,000, and we decided to really oversize a bit more, simply because we do have a lot more cloudier weather here up in the Wailua homestead. So, we're about 4 miles from the ocean. We don't have consistently sunny days, and making sure that our Tesla batteries are charged, which is what helps us to kind of have a buffer of charging power along with the PV in case it is a cloudier day. We'll have that. So I was looking at my app this morning. It was totally cloud cover. PV was putting out about 3, 4, 5,000 watts, and then the batteries were putting out the rest, like 3,000. So that's kind of the best, I believe. If you wanted to really stay away from using grid power, that would probably be the best design, I think.
Awesome. Thank you for that. We had another question just come in asking about electric light-duty trucks coming to market. So I did mention early in the presentation that the Ford F-150 and the Rivian truck are already technically on the market. Well, they took pre-orders, and their delivery is expected spring of next year. There's a lot of other trucks that are in development, and I would expect that within the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see a number of those trucks come online. I read a number of, in total, there are 100 current all-electric models planned to debut by 2025. So we're going to see a really big ramp up in the next few years. Okay, so there are some questions about charging. I saw one earlier in the chat about whether there are any safety concerns regarding the charging stations. And I think somebody did answer that there aren't any concerns, but I just wanted to see if anybody wants to expand on that, maybe Tandy from Hawaiian Electric.
Sorry, could you repeat that question one more time?
The question was about safety concerns regarding charging stations.
Charging stations. Yeah, generally they're very safe. Like our fast charging stations, there is a pin that locks in once you plug in, and you can usually hear like an audible click, and that's how you know it's fully engaged. And those are for safety reasons, so that you are not disengaging it while it's charging. So there are safety features built in to those stations to avoid any type of safety risk. These are all safety certified charging stations, and we really haven't seen many issues with the charging stations in the time that we've had them as far as user safety.
And then along the lines of that, someone asked about politeness protocols. So this could be for any of our EV owners. Are there any politeness protocols for using public chargers?
This is Marcus. I tend to go up to 80% and then stop right then because almost all the chargers will reduce your rate of charge going into your battery. And that's to protect the batteries. They don't want to fast charge or put too much electricity in. Once it goes over 80%, it'll continue to charge, but at a much slower rate. So you're not really getting a big benefit, especially with like the Hiko fast charger. I noticed just the other night, I used it and in the Green Lots app that comes, that you can use at the Hawaiian electric chargers, it showed a drop from 45 kilowatts an hour to 15 kilowatts an hour. And I did notice a Model 3 Tesla waiting to use it. So right away, I just stopped my charge and I was over 80%. So I had plenty of range for the next few days. I haven't even used it all yet. So I stop at 80% just to let others get on there.
Yeah, I would say definitely that, not staying and sitting, squatting, I guess, at a charging station beyond needing to use it is the ultimate politeness protocol. I know there's a lot of stations that will charge you if you stay longer, but some stations don't have certain mechanisms in place to disincentivize people just sitting there and parking. So I would say that's definitely something to keep in mind. David, were you going to say something?
I will say something real quick. So one thing that's really critical is, especially for our EV owners, is don't linger in those stalls if you're not plugged in, right? I think some of these parking stalls are really convenient, and it's sometimes very tempting to park there and not charge. It's actually not a very kind thing to do. The other thing I think that's really important is that if you have an EV with adequate charge, there are a number of these charging stations that are free for the first X hours, for example. Target here is a good example. There are many EV owners out there who may be in a position or who may need the charge more than you. So just being considerate and taking into account the fact that there may be others who may need the plug, whereas you don't need it. Just let it be. Just park elsewhere and leave that space for somebody.
Rita, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I wanted to add that like my EV comes with an app. So if I, park it somewhere and I have to go do shopping or whatever, when it's 100% full, or 80%, whatever I tell it, it'll alert me that it's full so I can be mindful for the next person, so that helps as well.
Okay, great. Well, we do have some other questions in the chat, but we are running out of time, and I want to make sure that we announce our raffle winners. So if we could just transition to that. For all of those who are attending, we will do our best to follow up on the questions that haven't been answered. And hopefully we have your contact information so that we can do that. Thank you so much for joining us. I just want to thank all of our EV owner panelists, our presenters, everybody who contributed to this event. Just really appreciate your time, your knowledge, and just sharing, your experience with us. So thank you, everyone, and happy National Drive Electric Week. Feel free to, reach out to me, Kianiwai at blueplanetfoundation.org if anyone has questions about EVs. So thank you again. Have a great day.